Well, girls, we're going to have a lot of fun today, and I'm going to be teaching you about some simple auto mechanics, as sometimes you're going to be out on the road and you're not going to have the boys around. So you need to know how to check the oil in a car. I'm going to teach you how to change the oil in a car. I'll teach you how to change a tire if you have a flat.
Are you basically setting up your daughters for a life of being a stay-at-home mom?
No, we're not setting up our daughters to be stay-at-home moms. Now, allow their husband to have the role of being the main breadwinner.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, April 21st, 2023, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. I have some breaking news for you from the county of Washington County, Arkansas, because Jim Bob Duggar's best friend, like longest best friend of decades, his childhood best friend, and a star witness for Josh Duggar's prosecution, has been slapped with 2 orders of protection against him by his wife and his son. That's right, James Holt, the former state senator of the state of Arkansas, has had 2 orders of protection filed against him and granted by his wife Bobby and by his son Samuel. So let's dive into the details of this, as it's been a breaking story that I've been working on all afternoon as I've been trying to gather information about the situation to provide you with as much details as I can. Before we get started, could you please do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below, down there. Make sure to leave a comment if you have something to say, and share this video with your friends. And if you want to get notified, make sure to ring the bell. Let's dive into the nitty-gritty of the orders of protection. But if you're not familiar with Jim Holt, let me give you some backstory. So Bobby and Jim Holt were best friends with the Duggars, and Josh Duggar was in a courtship with their oldest daughter, Kaylee. Kaylee was a front and center piece of the story related to the police report of 2006 and how Josh's essay against his sister became known to the wider public when someone found a letter that she wrote and placed in a book. When that letter was found by someone from church, the Duggars were confronted. A report to the police was made to the anonymous tip line, and the investigation into Josh Duggar was underway. Kaylee Duggar testified in a deposition in a lawsuit that the girls, the Jill and Ginger and Jessa and all of them, filed against the police and the county for illegally releasing the police report. The lawsuit was lost by the girls over immunity, and they found that there was really no malicious intent by the department in releasing the police report. So, but anyways, during this process, Kaylee basically revealed that she found out about what Josh was doing to his sisters in March of 2003 after Jim Holt had been called over to the Duggars' house. Jim and Bobby had been called over to the Duggars' house to talk with them about something that Josh had done to his sister. This incident that they talked to about Josh in March of 2003 was what Josh later then confessed to what had occurred and what he had done to his youngest sister at the time. After this happened, James and Bobby Holt, they break off the engagement between Kaylee and Josh, and these two were set to wed. They were like literally placed in a betrothal when they were 14 years old, with the idea that once they became old enough to get married, they would get married. Kaylee and Josh's relationship was split off, but in court, in Josh's case for his charges that landed him in prison, it was Bobby's testimony against Josh that basically outlined the details that Josh had told her about what he had done to his youngest sister. It was also James Holt who testified about a conversation that he had with Josh about his knowledge of the Linux partition, along with Josh's knowledge of computers and being a witness to a conversation about them discussing Covenant Eyes and placing a Linux partition on a system to get around it. So James and Bobby were both front and center at the trial for Josh, and during the process of Josh's trial, were going out publicly and saying they finally were, finally there was justice for Josh's victims. Finally, justice had prevailed this whole time, or finally justice after all of these years. They spoke about the gaslighting that they went through by the Duggars, and were basically like using their platform to not only help the prosecution, but also sort of settle what was a perceived argument between the two families about how to handle Josh. Now, what's interesting to note is that despite this 2003 admission by Josh to Bobby and to James, it didn't stop the couple from helping Josh. Josh actually moved to Little Rock while Jim was in session for the state Senate, and he helped on Jim's campaign when he sought election for, I think, U.S. Senate. So the relationship between Kaylee and Josh effectively was like null and void after 2006, when he again lied to Kaylee and was caught looking at content that he was looking at while he was helping Jim Holt on his campaign. He was caught looking at adult illicit content on computers. So the testimony of Bobby helped solidify the case against Josh, in that it proved that Josh had a history of acting out on children that were more than 5 years younger than him, more than 3 years younger than him, with the youngest being 5 at the time. It helped to show a pattern of Josh Duggar having an attraction to young girls under the age of 12, and it helped to sort of show that had Josh been properly prosecuted, he would have been charged with a specific crime under the Arkansas law, which would have been like essay in the second degree, I believe. So that was used as a factor when they considered as sort of as a witness account of there was really no other person that might be interested in downloading the content on the computer that was found on Josh's computer. Bobby and Jim's testimony was great. Some people were a little bit frustrated that they didn't do more. Jim Holt was also the one that went with Jim Bob, and they took him to the off-duty Arkansas State Trooper, where Josh confessed to what he had done to his sisters. That Corporal Hutchins never reported it to the police tip line, and so by the time it got reported a few years later to the tip line, the statute of limitations had already expired, and so therefore Josh was never charged. So all that to be said, Jim Holt and Bobby Holt's relationship with the Duggars became strained because obviously they knew what Josh was up to. By the time 2006 rolls out, Josh is caught doing more stuff. They can't trust him, and the relationship sours between the Duggars and the Holts. It didn't stop the Duggars or the Holts from having their kids be friends, and throughout the years, they sort of would interweave and sometimes see one another. So Jim Holt has known Jim Bob since he's been 5 years old, and they were the best of friends. They both had fathers that were like not super much in their lives. And when Jim Bob Duggar was running for state senate in an election that was doing like a special election after one of the state senators in the area had retired, they basically, he made a public statement, which Derek Dillard later like reshared onto his Facebook, basically saying that Jim Bob can't be trusted. He's a liar. You shouldn't let him represent your state. He lied on the witness stand. And then Derek Dillard also said, I stand by what Jim Holt says. And then Jim Holt did a series of interviews with podcasters. And I think he was going to be on and I think he's slated to be in the Amazon documentary that's coming out about the Duggars, which I'm not sure when that's coming out. So a lot is tied to Jim Holt's story, being that he's a great guy, that he's been doing all of these things. So obviously it's not a good look for when today I get notified from someone in the area that an order of protection was filed against him. The intimate details about this are not known, but I did speak to 2 people that said that something happened and that the main target of Jim, the main person that was victimized in this specific situation was not necessarily his wife, though his wife was granted an order of protection. So I'm not totally sure what's going on here, but an order of protection on April 20th was filed against Jim Holt in Washington County filed against him by his 20-year-old son, Samuel. He and Bobby have I think 10 children, and Samuel is sort of in the middle of all of the kids. He filed the order of protection on April 20th, and then that was granted. A temporary order of protection was granted by a Washington County judge today. After the court ordered the temporary order of protection, they also set a hearing for May 8th of 2023 at 9 a.m., they did the order ex parte for Samuel, and it was granted. So Sam, who's 20, now has received a restraining order against the former senator and former best friend of Bob Duggar, Jim Holt. And then this morning, Bobby Holt, the longtime wife of Jim Holt, who has been front and center in her discussions about Josh, was a key witness in the trial. She was the one that testified about Josh's abuse of his sisters. She filed an order of protection against her husband, also for domestic violence. So her petition was also filed this morning and granted by the judge this afternoon. And the order, again, is a temporary order until their hearing in May on May 8th at 9 a.m. So Jim Holt is, while not a member of the IBLP, still a fundamentalist and was part of the Duggars' home church. He is a patriarch that has a pretty controlling personality. And when the trial of this was all going on, I don't know the specific details about what occurred in this incident with Samuel, but it seems like something must have occurred between Samuel and his father, and then something must have occurred with his mom, with Bobby and Jim. For Bobby to file a restraining order against Jim is a pretty big step for a fundamentalist woman. A lot of women in this culture would never even dream to do something like this, especially with a patriarchal, controlling man that has probably used fear and violence in his family. So I, again, don't know specifics. What I can tell you from my own research and from interviews was in the middle of Josh Duggar's trial, Bobby and Jim were pretty vocal about everything that was going on. And for whatever reason, this prompted other people that had been either victimized by Jim Holt or were friends of the Holt kids to reach out to me and detail the abuse they alleged that was happening to the Holt children. So during the trial, I had multiple people reach out to me that were alleging that Jim Holt was a very violent man that was hitting his children with a closed fist. They were describing seeing black eyes, witnessing physical violence against the children by Jim Holt, and that Bobby too had, according to them, also been a victim of Jim Holt. So when I was confronted with this information, of course, I went to Jim and Bobby Holt and I asked them if this was true, and they denied it. So they said no violence. Of course, they admitted to corporal punishment, but they denied any closed hitting fists or anything like that. I did speak to their oldest daughter, who did confirm that their dad was, at times, took things too far. Another thing that I spoke to them about was related to some details I had been provided about two of their oldest daughters, who multiple sources had told me basically had to run away from their home because Jim Holt had made it so impossible for them to move, because they alleged that the girls were told that they were under his authority and that they could not leave until they were married. And they were adults in their mid-20s and they didn't want to live at home anymore. And they basically had to get help from extended family and move out of state in order to get out of the control of their father, allegedly. And then that was confirmed by, I'd asked them about that as well, and of course they denied that. But his oldest daughter, Kaylee, did tell me that they did help facilitate the moving of two of the daughters out of the home. So there's been a lot of accusations. There was also a court case, a custody case filed, and a divorce that happened with his oldest son, Stefan, and his ex-wife. And in the custody agreement, an order from the court stated that Jim Holt was not allowed to be unsupervised at all with his granddaughter as a part of their divorce agreement. So he's prohibited from being unsupervised with his granddaughter. There's no specific reasons for why that would be the case. And there's no allegations in any of those filings about any specific abuse. So he's prohibited from apparently being around his granddaughter, and now he has a order of protection out against him by his son and by his wife. And I don't know if there's going to be criminal charges at this point. I did check the Washington County Detention Center up to this reporting, and I only saw that there was no pending court cases against Jim Holt for any sort of violence, nor was there any arrest warrants, nor had he been arrested for anything that took place. The two of the people that I did speak to said that there will be a lot more coming out. The truth will definitely come out. There's way more to the story than these protection orders, and that the whole story will come out eventually, whether it's I asked if that meant if there's a criminal investigation or if there's been a police report filed, and they just said more will come out in the future. So I also don't know if this means that Bobby's going to file for divorce. I'm not sure. But either way, it seems as though the information that I was provided about his violence or alleged violence is being confirmed in multiple family members now filing order of protections against him. And now a former state senator and House representative of Arkansas has 2 orders of protection against him for violence. Jim Bob's former best friend and the man that was part of his home church that ultimately, in a way, was part of the group that protected Josh from any meaningful accountability. They definitely came in and helped the prosecution with his trial in 2020 or in 2021, but when it comes to the abuse of the girls, a lot of people failed them, including the Holts, in my opinion. So I'll keep you all posted, and as soon as I learn more, I will let you know the details, and that's all for now. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Bye, guys.